ask people, what comes to mind when I say Medusa? The typical response is, oh, she's the snake-haired lady who turns men to stone. Or she's the monster that Perseus killed. He lobs her head off. This has been a prevailing narrative of Medusa. But why? The simple answer, the patriarchy. Ancient myths, particularly Greco-Roman, were predominantly crafted by male authors. This led to a skewed, male-dominated perspective in the narrative of Medusa. These male myth makers lived in populous city-states steeped in cultural ideas where stark gender inequalities governed power, wealth, and social standing. The societal backdrop deeply shaped their mythological narratives, embedding them with patriarchal ideals that continue to influence our understanding of these stories today. So let me provide a quick overview of how the Greco-Roman Medusa myth stands as a potent example of patriarchal expression, a sustained narrative of Western mythology, the threatening, powerful female who jeopardizes the livelihood of men. Medusa, one of three Gorgonian sisters, was born mortal. As a beautiful young maiden, she caught the eye of Poseidon, a powerful male god, Neptune in Roman myth, who, depending on the given mythmaker's version, partook in a sexual act that was consensual with Medusa or an act of violence against her that occurred in a sacred temple. That temple honored the powerful female goddess Athena, Minerva of Roman myth, who blamed Medusa for the illicit act and turned her into a monstrous beast with snakes for hair whose gaze could kill. The story's hero is Perseus, a demigod who hunts down Medusa, cuts off her head, and then appropriates her power for his benefit. I know. Through the lens of patriarchal imagination, Medusa's behavior is unruly, her chastity tainted, no longer virginal, no longer worthy. She is held responsible for not adhering to the patriarchal script of the dutiful female. So the message is loud and clear. The patriarchy demands retribution for such unladylike behavior. Female fidelity to gendered ideals are expected. A dominant Medusa myth narrative then and now is that she is an ultimate villainess warranting discipline. Athena is a handmaiden of the patriarchy. Perseus, a convenient character to propagate the male hero quest. And for Poseidon, absolutely no consequences, since the patriarchy protects male predators. How ironic that he is shielded by the pillars of patriarchy that condemn Medusa. What we must realize is that myth, code of conduct, and patriarchy are intertwined, embodied by this personified archetype, a lasting trope, template, and model of the proverbial nasty woman. Medusa is packaged as the disobedient female who must be slayed, literally and figuratively. As Simone de Beauvoir wrote in The Second Sex, by the time humankind reaches the stage of writing in mythology and laws, patriarchy is definitely established. It is males who write the code. The patriarchal Medusa narrative, first referenced in oral and written myth, continues to be told, retold, rewritten, and repackaged into the current millennia in cultural spheres of literature, theory, politics, film, TV, music, comic books, educational curriculum, and video games. But what happens when the adherence to patriarchal values begins to change and shift? When there's an awareness, an awakening, a consciousness of how detrimental the patriarchy is for society and all citizens? What happens when women and our allies question the stories we've inherited, the stories that malign and marginalize us? Countering the patriarchal narrative is feminist revisionist myth. For Medusa, a feminist script to claim her agency and symbolic power. As feminist theorist and writer, Cynthia Enloe declares, how we tell and retell stories determines whether we sustain or challenge patriarchy. Alicia Ostriker, feminist poet and cultural critic, defines revisionist myth-making as a significant means of redefining ourselves and consequently our culture. Over 50 years ago, feminist poet Adrienne Rich underscored the need for reclamation, for revision from the male myth-making tradition. This drive to self-knowledge for women is more than a search for identity. It is part of her refusal of the self-destructiveness of male-dominated society. For Ostraker, the core of revisionist myth-making for women lies in the challenge to and correction of gender stereotypes embodied in myth. The patriarchal narrative of Western mythology, historically dominated by male perspectives, portrays Medusa as a marginalized female, completely disregarding her experience. There is no interiority for Medusa, no perspective, no voice. We know that Medusa, a beautiful young maiden, was the granddaughter of Gaia, a powerful and divine earth goddess. Medusa has two older sisters, Steno and Euryale, who were devastated and left completely distraught and heartbroken after Medusa's murder. Medusa was a mother. As Perseus's blade ends her life, she bore two children, Pegasus and Creosaur. The narrative we need is Medusa as a young woman having agency, ability, and vision for a well-lived life. Medusa as a young woman deserved to live life without fear from male harm and female retribution. Whenever we see a patriarchal Medusa output, a painting, sculpture, political meme, film, video game, it is a lingering echo from those male myth makers that viewed women as other. The problem is that women as other, less than, inferior is still a potent, albeit faulty, mental model. Feminist revisionist myth is about flipping the script that we all inherited and utilizing a new script of promoting feminist values and perspectives by questioning, countering, and rejecting the patriarchal narrative. But here's an important note. Feminist creators are not trying to cancel the patriarchal outputs. Ancient myths are historical documents. They are merely questioning the male-centric narrative to reclaim Medusa through a feminist lens, indicating, expressing, revealing any or all attributes of female agency, female solidarity, power with, and an overall rejection of the patriarchy. Rejecting sexist beliefs, biases, and gendered stereotypes, the Medusa feminist outputs signify recourse by offering a fresh cultural perspective, a departure from the stagnant patriarchal ideals that have dominated the representational archive of this mythological figure. This is why I created Medusa Scholar, a content repository of feminist Medusa outputs for inquiring minds, to historicize the connection between history, culture, and Medusa. Medusa as a muse has fostered creative energy producing feminist outputs in fiction, nonfiction, the fine arts, mass media, social media, fashion, jewelry, and body ink. So if you are curious about the production of the Medusa myth through a feminist lens, patriarchal too, whom has she been imagined by and why, across time and place, Medusa Scholar is for you. Countless women and male allies identify with the story of Medusa, symbolizing experiences of assault, judgment, unfair punishment, and malignment. Figuratively speaking, I am Medusa, you are Medusa, we are Medusa. Refusing to be labeled as victims, together let us boldly affirm and celebrate the feminist counter-narrative. So join me as I delve into the powerful world of feminist revision, the reimagining, reinterpretation, and consciousness raising of Medusa across cultures and throughout history. Together, we will explore how writers, artists, designers, and fellow citizens have challenged gender dynamics and societal norms that will leave you informed and inspired. That's the purpose of Medusa Scholar, a feminist platform to discover specific Medusa outputs as a reckoning, an exoneration, a vindication that Medusa was no monster. As beneficiaries of Medusa outputs, it is our duty as fellow citizens to recognize the significance and urgency of continuing to reclaim Medusa as our own. Patriarchy may be stubborn, but feminism too is unwavering.